inhumanity to man, alongside the bravery and heroism that show the very worst and the very best facets of human nature. Incredibly, there are archive images from every stage of this conflict, and as we consider the events of the Second World War chronologically, this series of programmes will build into the ultimate timeline. This is our past that we can truly connect with, revealing a history littered with living, breathing survivors who can still tell stories of the comradeship, hardship, suffering and, sadly on occasion, the futility of battle. However, we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. To truly understand the events of the Second World War and its build-up, we need to look into some of the major events that led to its breakout. Perhaps the most influential, beyond all others, was the outcome and aftermath of the First World War. This conflict was a key point in not only Hitler's rise to power, but the rearmament of Germany and the beginning of tensions in the East. The First World War, spanning the years of 1914 to 1918, is often referred to as the Great War, although there was little that was great about it. It was also called the War to End All Wars, which is rather a tragic misnomer with the benefit of hindsight. The figures for the casualties are staggering, with approximately 40 million people suffering injury on a very personal level. At least half of these casualties proved to be fatal. This so-called Great War ended with an armistice at 11 a.m. on the 11th of November, the 11th month, 1918, after which the defeated German Empire had its own internal revolution, leading to the end of the monarchy and the setting up of Germany as a republic. Even after the armistice was signed, the victorious forces still kept up their blockades around the country. This led to imports and exports being severely reduced, which did little to help Germany to rebuild itself. The next year, delegates from many countries arrived in Paris to discuss how to prevent a war of such scale from ever occurring again. While attempting to curb any possible resurgences of aggression in Germany, the group were also hoping to restore a sense of order and harmony to the world in the wake of the greatest loss of life their countries had ever seen. The official treaty that marked the ending of the First World War came a little while after the Paris Peace Conference and formed the backbone of the League of Nations. The Treaty of Versailles was drawn up by the victorious Allies and signed by all parties on June the 28th, 1919. But many historians believe that this well-intentioned treaty actually did more to cause a Second World War rather than prevent it. Signed in Versailles' magnificent Hall of Mirrors, the only country not allowed to take part in the process was Germany. The repercussions and heavy penalties imposed were therefore unworkable and would create a national feeling of resentment and revenge. It was this lack of foresight that eventually would allow the extremist views of Adolf Hitler to not only be listened to, but also acted upon. But Germany weren't the only people feeling that dissatisfied with the outcome. Italy too felt that they deserved more for their efforts in the war. Japan's Empire of the Rising Sun was angered that they didn't receive parts of China in recompense. With hindsight, it is clear to see that this was the beginning of the Axis alliance, as those feeling most left out when it came to the treaty banded together. Matters were made much worse because Germany was also forced to accept sole responsibility for the conflict, pay huge sums of money to the Allied nations for the damage that the war had caused, and relinquish land to specific ethnic groups to form new countries. Part of the deal also required Germany to disband the military and the manufacture of any